We've all heard the term inflation, but if you've been watching the markets recently or even reading up on the markets, you might have heard the terms deflation and stagflation being thrown around. But what do they mean? Well, in today's video, I'm going to address these three concepts. So let's hop on straight into today's video. So let's talk about inflation. So I recorded a video on this topic, but at an extremely high level, inflation looks at the broad increase in the cost of goods and services in an economy. So at the time of recording this video in the United States, inflation is around 8.3%, and in South Africa, it's a little bit over 5%. So what this means, as an example, I've got a bottle of water over here. So let's say this bottle of water costs, and I'm not affiliated to them by any means, just it was on my desk. But let's say that this bottle of water costs $1 today. And because inflation is around 8.2%, in a year's time, it's going to cost $1.08. That might not sound like a lot of money, right? But let's say it was your grocery bill and you normally pay $500 per month. All of a sudden with inflation, it's $540. And if you multiply that by 12, that's an extra $480 per year. And it's not only going to be your groceries that's affected, it's everything else in the economy. So all of a sudden, yes, you might have been breaking even on your budget or your spending plan, or you might have had a little bit more to snowball your debt or to avalanche your debt. But now all of a sudden you find yourself in a position where you don't have enough money to pay your bills, right? Because of inflation. So the people that are most affected by inflation tend to be people who are retirees, so people that have retired and that are living on a fixed income. So they might be taking withdrawals from their pension or provident fund, or the 401k or 403b. Alternatively, it's also people that might have bonds, and because of the inverse relationship between bonds and the interest rates, as interest rates goes up, the value of the bond comes down, and vice versa. Other people that are generally affected by this is people that have variable interest rates when it comes to their debts, and this could be with a mortgage or a car, and especially those of you that have credit cards. So inflation is going to affect you in an adverse way, but there's hope. So let's talk about stagflation. Stagflation refers to an economy where there is inflation, so the cost of things is going up, but at the same time, the economy is slow or stagnant, and there is a high unemployment rate. So stagnant economy is quite often a result of the monetary policy by your government, where they are raising the interest rates in order to cool down the economy or to cope with inflation. And it's also as a result of products and commodities being in low supply. At the moment, we haven't seen lots of job losses, and people seem to still be spending money on things and buying things online. So that hasn't declined quite yet. But with higher costs, eventually it will lead to lower profits at companies because people are not going to spend as much, and it might result to job losses for people working at these various companies. So if you find yourself in the United States, lots of people receive these stimulus packages from the government, for which we are grateful. But with that running its course recently, it could mean that people have less money to spend. And as a result of that, they're not going to invest as much. They're going to keep the discretionary income. They want to save it. And as a result of that, again, by not spending that money, it's going to affect companies' ability to expand, and it might even result in layoffs. And then finally, deflation. What is deflation? Deflation is the inverse of inflation. It's pretty much where the cost of goods and services is declining. So things are going down, the prices are going down, with the hope that people will start buying things. So that's a really high explanation of what deflation is. So what can you do in these times? Number one, have more than one source of income. I created a video with ideas for additional income that you could implement right now in order to ensure that you're not just relying on the income from your place of employment. So let's say you're working at company A. What happens if you lose your job? I'm not declaring that or speaking that over anybody, but what happens if you lose your job? What happens if they're not able to give you a promotion? What happens if they tell you that we're going to have to cut costs, and as a result of that, we're going to have to reduce your salary, or we are going to have to give you less hours? How is that going to affect you? But if you've got a second or third or fourth stream of income, you might not be affected by that as much. Number two, assess the type of companies that you are investing in. Are they paying dividends? Are they essential companies that will be around long term, or are you investing in companies that are startups that might not be around in a year or 2 years' time? The third thing that I want you to consider doing now, while the economy is still doing reasonably okay, is to upskill yourself. And I'm not saying you need to go out and take a student loan in order to go and study, but I'm saying look online if there's courses, go to your library, get books out, and start learning a new skill which you can either benefit from at your current place of employment, so maybe it'll allow you to get a promotion. Alternatively, it might position yourself where you can start generating other forms of income through a different stream, right? And about that, I mean, you might learn how to start creating websites. You might learn how to start doing marketing, so Facebook marketing for your local companies or organizations that lives around you. We find ourselves in a digital age, guys, where it's never been easier to generate extra income, but it's going to take a bit of time for you to learn the skills needed in order to do so. The fourth thing that I need to consider is to have a fully funded emergency fund right now and to start paying off your debt as and when it becomes due. The reason for the fully funded emergency fund is what happens if you find yourself where your hours are reduced and all of a sudden you can't afford to make your mortgage payment or your car payment. What happens in the worst case scenario? You are let go from your job. Same thing. If you don't have that fully funded emergency fund, you run the risk of maybe losing your car or your house. But if you've got that fully funded emergency fund, I normally say 6 months or so set aside, you should be in a position where you can either start up your own business, whether it's your side hustle becoming your new job where you can make some extra income, alternatively where you can find a new job. Why do I encourage people to pay off debt? Because normally there's a heavy burden that comes with it. Pay the debt off while you are able to, so that if something negative happens, like the loss of a job or you've got less income coming in through your normal job, you don't have to worry about them handing you over to for because you haven't paid or having your home repossessed or your car repossessed. But do your best to make sure that you are paying your debts as and when it becomes due. So as we wrap up this video, guys, if there are other points that you feel that yes, I've seen those 4 points that you've suggested that we can do in these troubling times, and you've got more things, feel free to comment below, because what you write might be the answer to a question, or it might be the solution to something that somebody else might say, hey, I can do that. And as a result of that, they can find themselves in a position where they are generating extra income, so that when and if bad times do come, that they'll be shielded from it. Again, as always, if you've not subscribed to this channel, I encourage you to subscribe right now, and also to share this video with friends and family. God bless you guys.